to hope. I know I need to hope. It's the antidote to fear. It's a capacity to imagine a different, improved reality from your own, regardless of how likely or even possible it is. And it is most urgent when times are hard. And friend, times are inarguably hard. There's one place I keep returning to when my hope reserves are dangerously low: stories and art. Ernst Bloch was a German philosopher who knew this pattern well. He dedicated his life to understanding the nature of hope, and specifically the role that art plays in generating this powerful and elusive feeling. Unfortunately, Bloch died before the Atari came out, so he never got to grip it and rip it in Call of Duty. R.I.P. Bloch, you would have hated advanced warfare.
Democracy? Democracy. Democracy.
But applying his work to video games today, I come to believe that if art is a laboratory and a novel is a Bunsen burner, video games are the Hadron Collider. Complex marvels of human ingenuity with mind-boggling effects. In the time since Bloch put down his pen, video games have found access to dimensions of hope that other mediums never dreamed of. And so today, I want to talk about some recent games that have inspired a powerful sense of hope in me using Bloch's framework. Our goal: to better understand where hope comes from and how it functions, so that hope, when we find it, doesn't feel so fragile. Many nights a whisper might balk when I call it a video game because it self-describes as a short, interactive essay. But it's the interactive part, or as I like to call it, the gameplay, that most effectively communicates its hopeful intention. A joint project from Selkie Harbor and Deconstruct Team, the latter you might know as the folks behind Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood, Many Night spends its 2-hour runtime asking, what does it feel like to hope? If wishes could feel, wouldn't there be an immense pressure to be fulfilled and be fulfilling? What's it like to be a literal long shot? You play as the dreamer, the once every 10 years chosen one. You've trained your entire life for the ritual happening in just a few days. Your role will be to shoot a fireball into the far distance and light a sacred chalice. If you make it, everyone's wishes will come true. Now, with the ritual fast approaching, the weight of your responsibility is more present than ever. You only have a few days left to practice. Each day begins with a conversation between the dreamer and their mentor, a 70-year-old genderqueer icon. Would that we all look this immaculate at their age. And these conversations act as an almost choose-your-own philosophical essay. The questions your mentor asks are poetic and pointed. Who is the sibling of death offers answers like sleep, or freedom, or submission, and your mentor reflects on whatever you choose with you as you navigate the philosophical implications together, sorting through their relationship to the giant task you have ahead of you. These moments of guidance serve to connect the larger themes of the game to the story and the gameplay. Since you, the player, just got here and haven't been training your whole life like the dreamer has, it feels extra embarrassing when you keep missing shots that should be easy for a main character. Trained my whole life to whiff this giant dish 10 feet away. Even though the day only ends when you tell your mentor you're done for the day, giving you effectively infinite practice time, the game ensures that you will share at least a fraction of the pressure. On the big night, if you miss, your save file gets deleted. No second chances. After a day of practice, night falls, and your role is to listen. Villagers come to the wishing wall. Each has grown a braid of hair for the sole purpose of telling you their wish. Your task is to listen to these wishes and determine, will you attempt to grant it? If you agree and you miss on the night of the ritual, their wish will never come true. This guy is never getting a girlfriend, and the way I'm shooting, he might be better off just joining a co-ed rec league or something. Damn it! But if you decide to take on the responsibility of their wish, you'll draw back your blade by pressing and holding a button and release to cut off their braid. Pulling back a slingshot and pulling back your blade are the same action. Draw in, hold, and when you are ready, release. It gives both ludological interactions a shared affect that invites you to consider the similarities between whether or not you'll make the shot and whether or not this wish is a good idea. You begin your intention by drawing back. As you hold, the words "what if" linger in the air and manifest as tension in your muscles. And when you release, all of a sudden it's out of your hands. You've done your part, now we'll see how it lands. The same pattern is replicated again in the other big gameplay question. How long do I practice before I end the day? I begin each day, stay as long as I decide to, and only I can release the day. Then, the dreamer dreams. A dream logic future composed of events from the wishes I've chosen. There is no gameplay interaction here. Our only task is to see how our choices worked out, like watching a fireball hurtling towards a distant chalice, uncertain if it will hit its mark. Ernst Bloch would have labeled these shared ludologic interactions as part of the utopian function of art. Bloch argued that because artworks come from the human imagination, they can be likened to daydreams, the place where imagined futures emerge from our unconscious into our conscious lives.
Daydreams by themselves remain unproductive. They can only provide the impetus to move out of oneself and to come into oneself if they are shaped into images that deny ideology's hold over humankind.
The images that an artist plucks from a daydream serve the utopian function of art. Science fiction has a utopian function of explicitly gesturing towards possible futures. When you watch Star Trek and see what a post-scarcity society could be like, the existence of the idea is a seed that takes root in your mind, and through your actions has an opportunity to grow into reality. And I think that games as an art form have access to a utopian function more mature than other art forms are able to offer, because they can help you embody an affect more completely. In the case of Many Nights a Whisper, you have 3 different gameplay interactions that allow you to embody the affect of hope in 3 different ways. Shooting each shot, cutting or not cutting each braid, and choosing when to end each day are experiences only available to a game. You could write a dialectic between you and your mentor, or you could tell a story about a town built by wishes. But none of those art forms would capture the feeling of hope in your tendons, in your bones. When described on the page, hope sounds uplifting and empowering, but when actually experienced, it's not that easy. It's always coming in and out of focus. It puts a lot of pressure on you, and it very literally takes practice. The game then uses the conversations with your mentor to contextualize these experiences and link them to a feeling of hope, realizing that one essential shot isn't just in the body, it's in the heart and the mind as well. It's deepening your reservoir of patience, reinforcing your tenacity, and quieting the self-doubt. Hope is in heart, in mind, and in body, and just like any muscle, it can be strengthened. But it demands practice. Every time we draw back our blade to slice off a braid, we're practicing that light bulb moment where we discover a new possibility for the future. Every time we hold our slingshot back while adjusting our shot, we're practicing the uneasy feeling of nurturing a new possibility, sharing it with someone unsure if they'll like it as much as we do, and ending each day uncertain whether your dreams will be peaceful or turbulent is like taking a concrete but uncertain step towards that new possibility, not knowing whether or not it'll work out. That's the infrastructure of hope. Draw in, hold, and release. In that way, games possess a utopian function that can manifest in your body as much as your heart and mind. Draw in, hold. If many nights balks at being called a video game, just wait until you meet Blippo Plus, where the only interaction you get as a player is channel surfing. In the game, you've intercepted an alien signal traveling through a bend in space and time all the way from planet Blip. The Blippians just discovered us too. They can see our radio signals, so throughout the 11 weeks of television programming that make up the game, we watch these aliens react to learning they aren't alone in the universe. Their first instinct is to, 1, create a new educational channel specifically for humans to learn more about Blip, which is so thoughtful, and 2, send some astronauts through the bend. Bendonauts. And my knee-jerk reaction to that was, stay away! It's nothing personal. You just caught us at a really bad time, Blip. It's a total mess over here, and I just know the first thing we do is shoot at you. And that made me so sad because, honestly, we could really use a friend like Blip right now. Watching Blippo Plus made me feel like a sci-fi anthropologist, discovering the values and structure of Blippian civilization. From the teens talking on boredom, I learned that slang on Blip is silly but playful, and the kids are alright. They're engaged and eager to participate in public life. From music videos and pop culture shows, I learned that fashion emphasizes bright colors and metallics, and gender seems to be more aesthetic choice than a field on a birth certificate. From cooking shows, I learned that the flora and fauna of Blip look like a junk drawer. And even though Blippians look and sound a lot like me, our digestive systems must work very differently. But what's most interesting to me is that Blippians are all a little bit psychic. They can't read minds, but Blippians are bombarded by each other's consciousness particles, meaning that their emotions, thoughts, and ideas are all a little contagious. When a Blippian claims the vibe is off, they're talking about a measurable scientific phenomenon. And the Psychic Weather Report, hosted by
The Psychic Barbara,
is here to inform you about what the vibes will be like this week. In a world where everyone is just a little bit psychic, national tragedy becomes a matter of public health.
I'm sensing a major shift in the emotional climate. A planet-wide atmospheric river of sorrow and regret is forming.
Repressed emotions on a large enough scale would have catastrophic consequences. For society to avoid collapsing under the weight of a shared melancholy, Blippians have to acknowledge one another's pain and make time and space for each other. Consciousness particles also linger after you die, so even when someone is no longer with us, their presence still lingers in a tangible way. Professor Ned Telson collects those particles in a brain in a jar and interviews dead celebrities on his show Brain Drain. It's very Futurama, but framed not as a throwaway gag, but as a guy in conversation with history. Every episode we learn how this brain contributed to Blippian society, and despite Ned's performative impulses,
You really are a TV scientist.
there's something very honest about the way these interviews engage with history.
My offerings worked. The blood sacrifices.
Oh, sure.
The billion gems.
Totally.
My great glimmering tomb.
Well, the tomb's a roller rink now.
Oh, what?
Of course this king is mad about the roller rink built over his tomb, but how bad do we really need to feel? He doesn't seem too regretful about those blood sacrifices, and the kids needed a new hangout spot anyway.
Unhand me.
That might take some doing.
This ultimately means that respect for the dead doesn't work the same way. They're all still out there just banging around in the consciousness field, literally gone but not lost. And I'm watching this like, damn, I wish we had that on Earth. Blip is far from a utopia though. CEO of Blippo Plus, Lisa Duo, seems to, as near as I can tell, double as the president of Planet Blip.
Democracy? Democracy.
And all movies have been reduced to a single franchise, where each film features an avant-garde woman taking down bad guys. Which, well, I'm always down for some art house feminism, A world where every movie is a Marvel movie is dystopian. And being psychic has drawbacks. The automatic intimacy of a psychic connection with everyone you meet has created an agoraphobia epidemic. But hey, at least Dr. Minette is here to try and provide some helpful guidance.
Getting out of bed is an important part of every day. It may seem like a lot, but remember, you can't get into bed if you don't get out of it first. The first step is sitting up. Can you do that for me? Great. Now, slip one leg out from under the blanket. Feel the air on your toes. The second leg comes much more easily, doesn't it? Now, stand up. You did it. Now head over to the couch. You deserve a break. I believe in you. Love, Dr. Minette.
Despite its problems, when peering through my TV, or rather my PD, I feel inspired by Planet Blip. A world where empathy is natural law, where art and play are more valuable than power and money. A place where this D&D game show exists.
Which artist, with the nicknames including the Princess of Parallelograms and the Acoustic Alien, announced her retirement from music at the height of her career?
Is it Software Sam?
Sorry, no. That is incorrect. Unfortunately, your vines are not strong enough to bear your weight. Your hit points are down to -12. Sorry, traveler.
Damn, I wish Quizzards were real.
Quizzards, the show of trivia, adventure, and chance.
Blippo Plus presents a world where we persevere over fallible human nature to thrive and create cool shit together. A place where revolution is possible and even celebrated. Watching Blippo Plus, I'm able to imagine a world that I not only want to live in, but would be proud to live in.
Think about all those people down there just looking up at us thinking, gee, ain't we small?
Evening, folks.
Star Wrangler 2 to Planet Blip. Sweet dreams, little fellas.
And Blippo Plus uses the uniquely interactive Utopian function of games to communicate its ideas to you. Game designer Mark LaCroix likes to emphasize that
the principal mechanic of this game is attention.
You can't pause Blippo Plus. It's live TV. Get up for a snack and you're gonna miss subroutines. And even though I want to check out Bushwalker, it means I'm giving up my chance to watch the Rubber Report.
Boing, boing.
Was it worth it? Maybe. So despite initially seeming like a passive experience, you're making decisions and you're glued to the screen. Not only because the shows are fun, but because you're managing a resource. Your attention.
The principal mechanic is attention.
It's like social media. A series of short, highly staged fragments of video that depict some aspect of culture either intentionally or unintentionally.
All of your favorite programs are scrolling by.
But when I compare Blippo Plus to my Instagram feed, there's a chasm of difference. And through the comparison, I can't help but form theories about what's working for Planet Blip and what's not working for Earth. I feel inspired to chart a route from here to there.
All hail the new static.
Our pal Ernst Bloch calls that moment, when a piece of art sparks an idea, the anticipatory illumination. Or Vorschein for all the Germans out there. Hi, Germans!
Literature and art contain the anticipatory illumination of that which has not yet become, and the role of the writer and artist is similar to that of a midwife who enables latent and potential materials to assume their own unique forms.
Art can have a utopian function, a future it wants you to discover, hold, and take actions towards, but the anticipatory illumination is how it goes about showing you that future. And while pretty much all art has some kind of utopian function, each work has its own unique anticipatory illumination. In Star Trek, watching McCoy use a tricorder and instantly diagnose a patient made thousands of kids go, "Why doesn't that exist?" And lo, almost 50 years later, some wacky billionaire puts a 10 million bounty up for the first biotech company that can invent a similar device. The tricorder held an anticipatory illumination. The anticipatory illumination in Blippo Plus is very different. Not only in substance, Planet Blip isn't more technologically advanced than Earth, but in method. Because this is a game, and one more time for everybody who's on their phone right now,
its principal mechanic is attention.
Because in playing the game, I can relate to the experience I'm having to an experience I have in daily life, social media. And it equates making a 10-minute bean soup with making whatever this is. Or even something like hosting a poetry telethon. Why shouldn't I make a breakfast tostada? Becomes as realistic as, why shouldn't I make more weird art? Or start a revolution? The shared affect between social media and Blippo Plus is in allowing my attention span to be repurposed. And it's my attention that guides me towards the anticipatory illumination that I need most. I quickly found that the programs I was most drawn to represented the kind of futures that I long for most deeply. For me, it's the psychic Barbara. Her empathy is displayed on a global scale, and it's accessible to every Blippian as a public service. I wonder what kind of anticipatory futures you'll find in a dark room illuminated only by the TV guide. A demon of glass and pain must devour hell's 8 moons to darken the night sky so that he may finally sleep. That's the lore of Skate Story, though you could also think of this game as Dante's Inferno with a skateboard. Your Virgil is a rabbit who you chase Alice in Wonderland style through the underworld. Your skate park is a version of hell styled like a surrealist New York City, home of developer Sam Eng. Take the subway between levels, meet weirdos at cafes, donut shops, and laundromats. Most characters seem antagonistic to you at first, but you win them over with the help of your trusty skateboard, and with a coterie of misfits cheering you on, you overcome your inner and outer demons, changing hell forever. It's a hopeful story. But this isn't a video about hopeful stories, it's about hopeful video games. And the anticipatory illumination within Skate Story was brightest for me during gameplay. Skate Story is about fiddling, screwing around. You spend the bulk of the game skating around each level, a New York neighborhood that would be mundane if not for the surrealist installations that hell has to offer, and the neighborhood becomes a playground. Railings, curbs, embankments sculpted into half-pipes. I'm not a skateboarder at all, even a little bit. It's too scary. But I'm told that reconceptualizing the city as a puzzle to be solved is what skateboarding is all about. And Skate Story builds on that concept by turning the city into well-crafted level design. Glowing sigils prompt you to execute a specific trick in a specific spot, or beat a particular score in 2 minutes or less. And it all has a lightly open-world gameplay feel as you engage in these challenges at your own pace and discretion. Nothing advances in the story part of Skate Story until you're happy with the amount of practice you've had, just like Many Nights a Whisper. Though the difference here is, instead of taking on the pressure of one single successful shot, Skate Story does everything it can to take the pressure off. These open levels encourage you to experiment with different kinds of skateboarding moves and techniques, perfecting a variety of moves to your satisfaction through the power of low-stakes fiddling. And you decide when you're ready to face this level's boss. And that way it's less like Mario, where the overworld is a path that inevitably leads you to Bowser's doorstep, and more like Spyro's hub worlds, packed with gameplay challenges themselves. Maybe that's why Spyro's designers felt it made sense to add this.
This chat is just like, oh yeah, no, it's fine that there's a dragon on a skateboard. That's not weird at all. No, I reject Skate Spyro.
Learning to play Skate Story kind of reminded me of learning to draw. The repetition of gesture drawing and the experimentation of a study, all attempted because I thought it was worthwhile and usually resulting in failure. And failure is an essential part of Skate Story too. As a demon of glass and pain, every fall sees you shatter into a million glittering pieces, giving each failure a discordantly satisfying flourish. Screwing up isn't, oh well, try again, it's a dazzling light show, an essential part of what makes the game so visually interesting and engaging. And the lightning-fast reset speed makes the next attempt feel low stakes and worth a shot. And so you return to your practice over and over again, just as excited to succeed as to see a show of shards from another angle. If only I felt that good about my failed sketches. Skate Story invites you to take this ethos and apply it outside of skateboarding in perhaps the most intimate way a game developer can. In a late game level, the beautiful hellscape melts away and the UI shifts. You're playing the game inside Unity now. This is the game engine, the tool the developer used to actually make the game. We're playing inside the testing mode, and I actually found it to be one of the more difficult levels. Turns and jumps were harder to make, as though this work in progress hadn't yet been tuned with the same precision as every other level. And I realized this was the experience Sam Eng had when developing these levels. Try, fail, adjust, try again. It's the same thing I've been doing this entire game, perfecting my sick moves. It isn't just a tidy little lesson about the nature of failure, it's Sam's philosophy, one that he felt would be best communicated through a game. Through you failing and even marveling at your own failure, and then after, finding yourself hungry for another attempt. That's fiddling. Skate Story is a game about fiddling. And fiddling is essential if we're going to access another one of Bloch's key concepts, the not yet conscious. This video began with a quote from Bloch that we'll need again here. Art is a laboratory and a feast of possible realities. If art is a laboratory, where do the experimental designs come from? If it's a feast, where does the chef get their recipes? Bloch called that origin the not yet conscious, the place where our daydreams come from. He was inspired by this wacky neurologist, Sigmund Freud, who supposed that the mind was more than just the thoughts we're aware of, and that there's a whole ocean of ideas and thoughts and emotion called the unconscious, formed from your memories and personal history. Bloch took this idea and said that the mind holds more than just history. It also holds inclinations toward possible futures. No, he's not saying that the unconscious mind knows the future. He's only saying that the unconscious mind has ideas about what is and isn't possible in the future. These ideas are pre-verbal, which means your conscious mind doesn't quite have the words to articulate them. And that's why they emerge as images. For example, a daydream. Times where you unwittingly find yourself imagining winning the Nobel Prize or going on a date with that cute girl. These daydreams come to the surface unbidden, and Bloch called the part of your unconscious they emerged from the not yet conscious. The part of your unconscious mind that is concerned with the not yet nature of future possibilities. And when do these images emerge? When we're idle, or doing something fairly repetitive or mindless, like, for example, fiddling around on a skateboard, or trying the same line of code over and over, or doodling. Time spent fiddling, trying things in a low-stakes way, when failure is not only part of the process, but expected and even cherished, is the difference between feeling hopeful in the moment and developing a practice of hope that stays with you day to day. It's where the not yet conscious peeks its head out, like a groundhog unable to find its shadow. Bloch puts it like this.
The not yet conscious itself has to become conscious of its own doings. It must come to know its contents as restraint and revelation. And thus the point is reached where hope, in particular, the true effect of expectation in the dream forward, not only occurs as an emotion that merely exists by itself, but is conscious and known as the utopian function.
In other words, the not yet conscious requires time and opportunity to emerge into the conscious where it can manifest as hope. That's a truth that modern life tries to discourage us from acknowledging, because it is, in the moment, contrary to being productive. We live in a world that desperately wants us to contribute to someone else's dream, usually at the cost of our own. Why are you wasting time on that? You're not even good at it. This sense that time spent fiddling is time wasted, it's not only cruel, but it's downright harmful to anyone in need of hope. Perfect Tide Station to Station is a memoir-turned-adventure game from Meredith Gran, and it's one of the best written games I've ever played. I found the story of our protagonist Mara to be profoundly relatable. My freshman year was also my first year in a big city. Not too long after the game is set, in 2003. I was just as insecure as she is. I felt like a weird alien wearing human skin like a cheap suit. Like Mara, my relationship with my Judaism and my family was, and honestly still is, weird and complicated. And like Mara, my mental health was also about as sturdy as the last leaf in autumn. But the thing I related to most? I was also completely boy crazy, in all the wrong ways. The game is structured roughly into 3 acts, each defined by a different romantic interest. While the game speaks richly about all aspects of Mara's life, it's her romantic life that seems to loom largest in her mind. The game starts with a quote from Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway.
Fear no more, says the heart, committing its burden to some sea, which sighs collectively for all sorrows, and renews, begins, collects, lets fall.
This is followed by the narrator's immediate criticism that starting with a quote is hack, and it's your first clue into Mara's constant self-criticism. And, not coincidentally, it's also the moment I realized I was going to love both this game and Mara. Because that tendency to make a choice only to turn around and immediately criticize myself for it in the next sentence is something I do constantly. It kind of drives my therapist nuts. But I'm so glad we do get this quote. It's perfect. Mrs. Dalloway is one of Virginia Woolf's most influential books. Set in the contemporary 1920s, it's her deepest exploration into the internal life of the contemporary woman. It was revolutionary for the way it used stream of consciousness narrative to expose the regrets, the crippling self-doubt, and the suffocating nature inherent to being even the most privileged kind of woman. And in many ways, Station to Station is in conversation with Virginia Woolf. It's sort of a modern update. It uses the same stream of consciousness style of narration and expands on that revolutionary approach by putting you inside the head of our protagonist quite literally, allowing you to kind of direct the attention of the stream, but never stop it. In the context of this Virginia Woolf quote, Station to Station becomes a reflection on, despite how much things have changed for women since 1925, a lot hasn't. Most prominently, the crippling pressure and self-doubt are still as loud as ever. Oddly, it was these difficult examinations that inspired the feeling of hope in me. Because I've never seen the feminine inner life, especially one I related to so deeply, depicted with such nuance, honesty, and compassion. Especially in a video game. For me specifically, the 2003 setting is essential because it was a time when teen Katie's female role models were...
Who knows anything about Japanese history? There were some samurai, they periodically killed themselves, a rat learned judo, and they invented a religion that sanctified small trees and fat guys wrestling. Then we nuked them. That's what they turned into a real country.
Democracy?
So the setting was more than just nostalgia for me. To return to 2003 specifically, to see a woman's life depicted in all its trials and foibles. To see her somehow still find a way forward in a society that feels eternally antagonistic to the feminine experience. It felt healing in dimensions I can't fully express. It made me hopeful for the future of feminism. We're still figuring this out, but we can figure this out. And Meredith Gran is showing her work. Though there's also something much more universal about the brand of hope that Station to Station has to offer. Here, from the wisdom of 2026, I see the situations Mara gets herself into and I think, oh no, girl, that's not it. And then I turn around and I remember, Katie, you weren't doing that much better. But we aren't passive players reading the story of Mara's life. It's a game, remember? I found myself often making the most chaotic, self-destructive decisions for Mara, not because I wanted to see what would happen, a la Disco Elysium, but because I kind of hoped it would shake up her life enough to get her off the destructive path I could see her hurtling down. Wake her up from the wholehearted belief that this guy is finally going to be the one to make her feel whole. One of Bloch's most pressing questions was, can hope be disappointed? And in a conversation with his longtime friend, Theodor Adorno, Adorno confronts Bloch with the ugly reality of hope.
Numerous so-called utopian dreams, for example, television, the possibility of traveling to other planets, moving faster than sound, have been fulfilled. However, insofar as these dreams have been realized, they all operate as though the best thing about them had been forgotten. One is not happy about them. As they've been realized, the dreams themselves have assumed a peculiar character of sobriety.
Hope can absolutely be disappointed. The dreams they're talking about here are much grander than a boyfriend. Going to the moon, breaking the sound barrier, and yet, just like Mara's love life, their realization leads to a similar sense of disappointment. You got everything you ever wanted. Aren't you happy now? Both we, as members of society, and Mara, the college freshman, would answer with a resounding no! And that's devastating. It leads you to a sense that hope was futile and even foolish, that we'll never be happy, and that our dreams aren't even trustworthy. A vision of a better future suddenly turns ashy in our mouths. Bloch and Adorno had a word for that ash. They called it a residue.
There is a great deal that is not fulfilled and made banal through the fulfillment, regardless of the deeper viewpoint that each realization brings a melancholy of fulfillment with it. So the fulfillment is not yet real or imaginable or postulatable without residue. I believe that this depreciation is very old. The slogan, "That's merely utopian thinking," reduced as depreciation to castle in the clouds, to wishful thinking without any possibility for completion.
Put differently, that dissatisfying residue that remains after the fulfillment of a dream makes it banal, and when it happens to enough people in a society, leads to a widespread dismissal of hope. You might say, let's just tax the billionaires to fund universal health care, but you're met with patronizing smiles.
It's complicated.
They'll tell you.
There's so many reasons that won't work. You clearly just don't understand the nuance.
That kind of response that is quick to dismiss comes from a place of wounded, disappointed hope. A reluctance to dream again for fear of being let down by your own dreams. And it's run unchecked for some time, leaving us in a society that is now hostile to hope. And yet, Bloch argued, the residue is actually inevitable, and maybe it's even essential to the process of hoping. Mara's story actually demonstrates this principle perfectly. Each awful situation Mara finds herself in also sees her inevitably rising from the ashes, the residue of her dashed hopes. Her wallowing is actually essential to the rebound. It's when she's reflecting on her last relationship that she begins to pivot her thinking to keep from making the same mistakes. And this path towards growth is undeniably painful. It's filled with heartbreak after heartbreak. It's not like Mara realizes, oh, I need to be more confident, and then everything's fixed.
Get confident, stupid!
No, she knew that before we even started the game. We see it in the game's first seconds with the epigraph. She knows she should be more confident, it's just not accessible to her. Though what Mara does come to at the game's conclusion is a realization that I found beautiful. Her relationships with men loom so large in her life, not because she's boy crazy or any similarly sexist concept that diminishes the internal life of young women, but because she believes that through these relationships, she'll find that self-assuredness she's searching for. She's falsely hoped that she could shape and find a love that is so perfect that she'll finally have the confidence to be a great writer, a good daughter, the life of the party. And yeah, I've f***ing been there, girl. There's a moment near the end of the game where it's made apparent to her in the most painful way possible. She's reacting to another romantic endeavor gone awry when she asks her partner, "Did you actually think I was a good writer?" And he says, "Yeah, of course you're a great writer." And Mara pushes him. She says, "I don't want to be flattered, just tell me." And he responds,
"Tell you what? That you don't have what it takes? Is that the only answer that'll seem like the truth? What kind of authority am I either way? How the hell would I know who's got what it takes?"
The naked truth, quite literally, that love cannot make someone your arbiter, that no one has or deserves that kind of control over your life, and if they seek that kind of control, that's a red flag. There's an inclination when sitting in the residue to deny that you ever were hopeful, to insist that you never really thought it would work out. You are a smart pessimist, not a dumb optimist. And I think we often assume that optimism is the same thing as hope, but in reality, embracing the residue is the key difference. Optimism, especially the kind you'll find in toxic positivity, denies the residue, refuses to iterate on a failed idea because there is no such thing as failure under its gaze. Station to Station provided me with an anticipatory illumination that refuses to be snuffed. Not because we watch her fail and get back up again. What we come to feel in that embodied way through playing the game as Mara is an ambivalence towards optimism. It's not about believing that Mara can find love, or even that everything will work out. It's about accepting that Mara's life will steer her toward or away from relationships that may or may not work out, and the one thing we can be confident in is her ability to grow and recover. But that growth and recovery process is only possible when she opens herself up to hoping. I came away from the game excited for my own life's roller coaster and acknowledging that there's real beauty in the journey. The anger, the despair, the longing, and above all, the want are all part of it. In the final scene of the game, Mara's talking to one of her oldest friends and reflecting on how f***ed up they are over their failed relationships and says,
"Maybe someday it won't be so clouded. You can just remember things and think about them and let them go."
And that opening Virginia Woolf quote comes back to me. It's revealed to act almost like a prayer for all of us. That we may...
"Fear no more, says the heart, committing its burden to some sea, which sighs collectively for all sorrows and renews, begins, collects, lets fall."
In Promise Mascot Agency, you play as Michi, also known as the Janitor. He's the most feared enforcer for the Shimatsu Yakuza family, and a deal gone awry forces matriarch Shimatsu to banish her top lieutenant to the mysterious town of Kasomachi. Any Yakuza who sets foot there is said to be cursed and to suffer a slow and painful death. And when we drive into town in Michi's signature K-truck, we see that Kasomachi's haunted reputation is deserved. Crows, fog, creepy landmarks, it's all very Silent Hill too. Michi must earn back the money he lost by opening a Japanese mascot agency. And your partner is a severed finger mascot named Pinky. In the world of Promise Mascot Agency, mascots aren't guys in suits. They're their own species, living amongst humans like mysterious fae creatures. This bizarre premise is par for the course for developer Kaizen Gameworks, who you might know as the folks behind Paradise Killer, a game that also has its own bonkers lore.
But they've retreated to the moon to suck out all of the moon energy, and that's why they need to destroy the moon.
Your first job, sending a piece of tofu to promote a tiny local bookstore, feels pitiful, and I'm struck by how all this seems like it's never gonna work. It's even more absurd whenever you meet someone new and then Pinky loudly and proudly proclaims that you're in the business of making dreams come true. And I'm like, Pinky, can you chill out? I'm a disgraced Yakuza, and you're a severed finger. We're two losers with a truck and a failing mascot agency. We should be finding clients, not saving the school. We're not the Make-A-Wish Foundation. What if their dream is impossible, like flying? We can't make that come true. Oh, okay. Maybe we can. The name of our business, Promise Mascot Agency, is significant here. It represents the commitment we made to our matriarch to earn that money back, the commitment we've made to our employees to help their careers, and yes, even the commitment we made to this Kappa mascot to achieve his dream of opening an arcade. Each proclamation that we're in the business of making dreams come true is another promise. And against all odds, we're gonna make it happen. But the game has much more on its mind than simply, it's good to help people. It illustrates how everyone's dreams are connected. Sending our mascots to small events in the business district begins to draw in more shoppers. That means more businesses start opening and the agency gets more jobs, and Kasomachi's economy improves. helping one person makes them less bitter and it softens their heart, and then they pay it forward. When the game starts, I'm isolated and doomed in a cursed, dying town, but by the end, I feel like I'm one of many pillars, all working together to hold up a thriving community. Most of your time is spent driving around Kasomachi, getting to know the landmarks, the map, judging the width of the street, avoiding the streetlights so your truck doesn't go flipping 20 feet in the air. It's a really good truck. It's the experience of moving to a new town and learning your way until it starts to feel like home. You even speed through piles of trash to clean up the place. The game is also careful to point out the ways in which greed and selfish thinking destroy communities. As we learn more about the history of the town and the curse, and how companies and greedy politicians took advantage of Kasomachi, pumped it dry of its natural resources, and abandoned the townspeople when the profits dried up. As you bust through the corrupt mayor's numerous re-election signs, the HUD gives you a small reward for smashing the old order. It feels punk rock, but then we learn that the mayor stole millions of yen from a revitalization grant, and it stops being about general purpose hoodlumry. Pinky decides to run against him in the next election. Taking responsibility for a hurting community like this reminds me of one of my favorite adages. None of this is your fault, but all of it is your responsibility. Of the games we've talked about today, Promise Mascot Agency is the most straightforward in its anticipatory illuminations. Community building doesn't need magic, doesn't even need a societal overhaul. This revolution happens one trash bag at a time. It's the perfect demonstration of one final concept from Bloch I want to give you today. Kasomachi's transformation is an example of what Bloch called a concrete utopia. He theorized that there were two kinds of utopias, concrete and abstract. An abstract utopia is like Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry presented us with the world of Star Trek fully formed. Money and greed are already eliminated. Racism is already over. We are already post-scarcity. And Roddenberry, as the creator of Star Trek, becomes the primary architect of an imagined ideal society. But how do we get there from here? Well, I guess what we need is a billionaire to hold a competition to make a tricorder? That's not necessarily directly accessible to you and me. And even that project has left behind its own sticky, unpleasant residues. An abstract utopia, like the one depicted in Star Trek, will ultimately require and reward individual architects, making sweeping decisions on everyone's behalf. The consequences of an abstract utopia are actually explored in the studio's previous game, Paradise Killer.
Paradise Killer,
where we're solving a murder on the 24th iteration of an island designed specifically to be a utopia by a single architect named, get this, Carmelina Silence. It's an incredible game. But the utopia is specifically designed to exploit citizens that were abducted to work on the island as slaves. This obviously evil and corrupt society proclaims that this island is a utopia, but the previous 23 attempts have ended in disaster. And now 24 is a bust too. Everyone left is waiting around for a ride to Perfect 25, Carmelina's next attempt. This abstract utopia has been a catastrophically bad idea. Meanwhile, a concrete utopia is an explicitly collective process, making it a little more squishy in what it might finally look like. And that's a little counterintuitive, right? You'd think a concrete utopia would be fully specified in all its details, while an abstract utopia would still need some filling in. But for Bloch, the idea of utopia wasn't about the architectural details you can make out in a painting of paradise. No, it was about how concrete does it feel for you specifically to take a single step towards it. Because that's how a utopia is actually achieved, with everyone's participation. No one can do it for you. And if they say they can, they're probably a charlatan trying to trap you in a crazy underwater hellscape. The concrete versus abstract divide is about acknowledging that any real utopia is a collective process that requires input from many people, all inspired by their own anticipatory illuminations. And here in 2026, driving through the fictional town of Kasomachi, I see a collective, concrete utopia made up of everyone's wishes. Each dream achieved makes another dream possible. I called this video "The Games That Taught Me How to Hope," as though there is something unique and special about the games I talked about. But as much as I love and recommend all 5 of these titles, they're kind of just 5 examples I picked from the last year. If you want the truth, I was planning to make a video about each one of these individually, and then I realized that I love all 5 of them for the same exact reason. They all left me with that feeling of hope. And since playing these games, I've found at least half a dozen more I could have included. The utopian function of art is one that I think most of us already understand on some level. When I asked you all if you had stories that made you feel hopeful, I got a record number of comments back. All stripe of Final Fantasies, Chants of Sonar, The Parable of the Sower, Katamari Damacy, Contact, Pixar's Soul, Outer Wilds was mentioned like 1,000 times. I Saw the TV Glow, and Disco Elysium, and yet more Disco Elysium. It's a good pick. There's not a shortage of anticipatory illuminations available to us. My hope is that now, on the other side of this video, it feels a little less mysterious where that feeling comes from. That you'll relish an opportunity to fiddle, just to give your not yet conscious some time to breathe. That you'll feel a little bit more savvy when you spot the difference between an abstract and a concrete utopia. And that when your own hopes are disappointed, you won't need to harden your heart, because you'll understand that the disappointment is an inevitable part of hope's mechanism, and it's leading you exactly where you need to go. Most of all, I hope that armed with this knowledge, it'll be a little easier to find hope the next time you go looking for it. Thank you so much for watching. You know, it's pretty rare when I can say that I like a video right after I finish it. Usually I've both come to hate the script and also I can only see the flaws in the video. But I like this one actually, and that feels pretty good. And I hope that you liked it too. Man, never has a video made me more self-conscious about how much I use the word hope. I kind of feel like I owe a shout out to Spirit City Lo-Fi Sessions specifically for this video. They didn't give me a free copy or anything. I was just in a productivity slump and somebody recommended it to me. And while it's kind of just like a Pomodoro with a bunch of little aesthetic customizations, and those customizations can be more distracting than helpful, it really helped me get back into the project at a time when the thought of writing a single word sounded terrible. So it really helped me get back into the groove, and that led us here to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this one, I got plenty more videos. There's a playlist around here somewhere. I owe the biggest thanks to my brave and generous patrons. With their generosity, I can kind of follow my whims on video topics while continuing to improve the quality of work I put out. For example, new microphone! Did we notice the new microphone? What do we think about it? I think that it's an overall improvement, but it's also forcing me to work on my mic technique, which, let's be honest, is for the best. I love my patrons so much that I like to wish them a happy birthday when I can. And if I were to do that right now, it would probably sound something like...
Hello, I'm Whoosh, and I came down from space. I traveled for miles to put a smile on your face. Yo,
Soda!
Happy birthday! You're cool! My home is Mars and the trip is long, but it's worth it to sing you this birthday song. Yo,
Soda!
Happy birthday! You're cool!
That was awesome!
Everybody wish Soda a happy birthday in the comments. You're all implicated.
I'm implicated.
Democracy?